You know what happens when everyone counts you out? When the so-called experts label you a bust before you even step on an NFL field. When your own dad gets blamed for your success and critics say you'll never make it. Well, Shedeur Sanders just walked into Cleveland Browns OTAs and absolutely torched every single doubt, every criticism, every negative report that sent him tumbling from a projected top 5 pick all the way down to the 5th round. We're talking about insider shock, critics eating their words, and a rookie quarterback who's not just participating, he's absolutely dominating. The kid, they said, was unprofessional and disinterested, just threw 7 of 9 passes with 3 touchdowns and 0 picks while veterans struggled to hit 60%. This isn't just a comeback story. This is a complete demolition of the pre-draft narrative, and it's happening right before our eyes. Look, I've been around this game long enough to know when something special is brewing, and what's happening in Cleveland right now with Shedeur Sanders. This is one of those moments that makes you question everything you thought you knew about draft evaluations and preconceived narratives. Let me paint you a picture of just how brutal this kid's draft slide really was. We're talking about a quarterback who was being mentioned in the same breath as the top picks, someone analysts had pegged as potentially going in the top 5. Elite college numbers, 74.2% completion rate, 35 touchdown passes, 327 yards per game. These aren't just good stats, these are video game numbers. But then the whispers started. The anonymous sources. The concerns about his attitude. Matthew Berry reported that 2 independent sources described Sanders' interviews as bad, calling him unprofessional and disinterested. NFL position coaches were supposedly calling him brash and arrogant. Then came the body language criticisms, the decision-making questions, and that brutal stat that haunted him. 94 sacks taken in his final 2 college seasons. The media machine turned on him hard. They questioned his arm strength, compared him to backup quarterbacks like Tyrod Taylor. They said he'd fold like a tent under pressure. Some even suggested he wasn't fully committed to football because of his interest in music. Can you imagine? The kid's got multiple talents and they turn it against him. And don't even get me started on the daddy ball narrative. Because his father, Deion Sanders, was his coach at Colorado. Suddenly, everything Shedeur accomplished was questioned. Was it nepotism? Was he only successful because of his dad's influence? The critics had a field day with this angle, completely ignoring the fact that maybe, just maybe, having a Hall of Fame father who understands the game at the highest level might actually be an advantage, not a liability. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is where the haters got it completely wrong. Fast forward to Cleveland Browns OTAs, and suddenly everything changes. Nathan Zagura, the Browns color analyst who's been around this franchise for over a decade, watches Shedeur in practice, and his reaction is immediate. His ball placement is elite. His ability to layer throws is elite. Elite. Not good. Not promising. Elite. But wait, it gets better. Head coach Kevin Stefanski, a guy who doesn't throw around praise lightly, is publicly raving about Sanders' work ethic. He's calling him a great kid who's working like crazy and consistently in there early. This is the same player that anonymous sources called unprofessional and disinterested. The numbers from OTAs are absolutely insane. During one Wednesday practice, while veteran Joe Flacco went 9 of 14 with 1 touchdown, while Kenny Pickett struggled at 9 of 16 with 0 touchdowns, and fellow rookie Dylan Gabriel managed 11 of 16 with 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. Shedeur Sanders absolutely torched the defense. 7 of 9 passes completed, 3 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. Think about that for a second. This is a 5th-round rookie, the 144th overall pick, a guy who supposedly had attitude problems and couldn't handle pressure, and he's out there making seasoned NFL veterans look ordinary. Across all 5 open OTA and mandatory minicamp practices, Sanders recorded the highest completion percentage among all 4 competing quarterbacks and threw the most touchdowns. His lone interception? A deflected pass that wasn't even his fault. The critics who were so loud before the draft? They're starting to sound a lot different now. Here's where this story gets absolutely delicious. And why I'm telling you this is bigger than just one player's success. This is about how narratives get created, how they spread, and how they can be completely demolished by actual performance. Tony Grossi, And if you don't know Tony, he's a prominent Cleveland Browns beat writer who's covered this team forever, was one of Shedeur's loudest critics. Before OTAs, Grossi was publicly saying the media was overinflating Sanders' standing. He called him a developmental quarterback and explicitly stated Sanders is not a franchise quarterback. He took offense to any suggestion that Sanders might be competing for the starting job, but then something happened. Grossi actually watched Sanders practice. After seeing him in action, Grossi had to admit he was surprised by Sanders' performance. He conceded Sanders was good in the red zone, though he tried to downplay it initially. But when pressed about that incredible 7 of 9 3-touchdown performance, even Grossi had to say, he did fine. He did fine. The most telling moment? Grossi admitted Sanders is coachable, something he had previously denied. He also noted that Sanders looked better with the veterans than he actually did at rookie camp, showing clear improvement and adaptability. This is a complete 180 from one of his biggest critics. From questioning his character and ability to admitting he's coachable and performing well. That's not just changing your mind. That's eating crow on a public platform. Nathan Zaguro went even further, revealing that he was very into the Browns, taking him in the first round during his pre-draft tape study. A first-round grade on a guy who fell to the 5th round? That's not just a steal, that's highway robbery. But here's what really gets me fired up about this whole situation. When you dig into the actual data, the pre-draft criticism starts looking really stupid really fast. Sanders finished 2024 with the 3rd highest accuracy rate in all of college football and the 5th lowest rate of uncatchable throws in the FBS. The kid was facing the most pressure of any quarterback in college football, literally the most pressured quarterback in the nation, and still managed to avoid turnovers at an elite level. His turnover-worthy play percentage was just 1.3%, ranking 3rd best among all draft-eligible quarterbacks. Even under pressure, that number only goes up to 2.5%, still 8th in his class. You want to talk about composure under fire? This is it. The sack numbers that everyone used against him? Yeah, he took 94 sacks in 2 seasons. But here's what the critics conveniently ignored. Colorado's offensive line was garbage. Pro Football Focus noted that while Sanders was responsible for some pressures, the line often couldn't hold up enough. So he's getting blamed for his protection breaking down, which is like blaming a race car driver for losing when his engine keeps exploding. And here's the kicker. When Sanders did have a clean pocket, he earned the 3rd highest clean pocket PFF passing grade among all draft-eligible quarterbacks. Translation: give this kid time, and he'll pick you apart. The arm strength concerns? Nathan Zaguro watched him in person and said, I think he's got plenty of arm strength. We've seen that on display, certainly in camp at times. All those comparisons to backup quarterbacks were based on what exactly? Assumptions and preconceived notions. The daddy ball narrative that everyone loved to hate? That might have been Sanders' biggest advantage all along. Asterisk, here's something that's going to blow your mind. All that criticism about Sanders benefiting from his father's coaching? It turns out that was actually setting him up for NFL success in ways that his critics completely missed. Sanders played in a pro-style system under Deion throughout his college career, while other college quarterbacks were running gimmicky spread offenses that don't translate to the NFL. Sanders was learning concepts that NFL teams actually use. He was getting coaching from a guy who played at the highest level and understands what it takes to succeed as a professional. But it gets even better. Sanders spent time training with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Let me repeat that. He got personal instruction from 2 of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. While his critics were calling it daddy ball, Sanders was getting access to coaching and mentorship that 99.9% of college quarterbacks will never experience. Now he's working with Browns offensive coordinator Pat Shema, getting what sources call next-level instruction. The kid went from learning from Hall of Famers to working with NFL coaches who understand how to develop quarterback talent at the professional level. The narrative that was supposed to hurt him. Having connections, having access to elite coaching, learning pro-style concepts, turns out to be exactly what's making him succeed at OTAs. But let's talk about what this really means for his future. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that dominating OTAs means Sanders is guaranteed to be the starter week 1. The Browns have a crowded quarterback room with Deshaun Watson still under contract, veteran Joe Flacco, trade acquisition Kenny Pickett, and fellow rookie Dylan Gabriel all competing for spots. Coach Stefanski has been smart about managing expectations, telling media not to read too much into rep distribution, and emphasizing that they're in a teaching phase. This isn't the coach being negative about Sanders. This is smart organizational management, protecting a promising rookie from unrealistic expectations while he develops. Sanders himself shows incredible maturity in how he's approaching this situation. He said, "My goal is to be the best teammate and to be as polished as I can be in every aspect. I view things as I got time. I got time to be able to grow and mature and be able to understand the ins and outs of the defenses." That's not the attitude of someone who's arrogant or entitled. That's the mindset of a professional who understands the process and is committed to getting better every day. But here's the reality. As a fifth-round pick, Sanders is still fighting just to make the roster. USA Today's Nate Davis issued a roster cut warning, pointing out that late-round picks don't even need to give a team a reason to cut him. Sanders got some speeding tickets recently, and while former Browns coach Eric Mangini called it a minor issue, Davis used it as ammunition for his cut warning. The pressure is real, and the margin for error is slim. But if these OTA performances are any indication, Sanders isn't just fighting to make the roster. He might be fighting his way up the depth chart faster than anyone expected. Here's something that goes way deeper than just football, and it's why this story has captured so much attention. As one analyst pointed out, this situation has gone beyond sports, and there's a cultural aspect that people believe their cause is more than just a career or a game. Sanders represents something bigger than just another quarterback prospect. He's the son of a legend who's been in the spotlight his entire life. He's faced criticism that went beyond football and touched on family, privilege, and whether he deserved his opportunities. The fact that he's not just surviving but thriving in this environment sends a message. It challenges the narrative that success through family connections somehow makes you less worthy. It proves that having advantages doesn't mean you can't also have talent and work ethic. When Sanders succeeds, it's not just about one player. It's about proving that sometimes the critics get it wrong, sometimes the narratives are unfair, and sometimes the best revenge is just showing up and being great. The question everyone's asking now, is this sustainable? The real test is coming, and everyone knows it. OTAs are controlled environments with limited contact and scripted situations. Preseason games are where we'll see if Sanders can handle real NFL speed, real pressure, and real consequences. Steve Smith Sr. put it perfectly when he said Sanders is the most fascinating player of the NFL preseason, and that he'll be glued to his set watching this. Even former players and analysts who were skeptical are now admitting they're curious to see what happens next. The things critics said Sanders couldn't do in college, getting the ball out in less than 2.5 seconds, reading defenses at the line, setting protections, operating a huddle. These are exactly what everyone's going to be watching for in preseason action, that if Sanders can show improvement in these areas, if he can demonstrate that he's learned from his college mistakes and adapted to NFL concepts, then all those pre-draft concerns become irrelevant. If he struggles with the same issues that plagued him at Colorado, then maybe the critics had a point after all. But based on what we've seen so far, based on the complete turnaround in perception from people who actually watch him practice every day, I'm betting on the kid who's been proving doubters wrong his entire life. Look, at the end of the day, this story is about more than just Shedeur Sanders. It's about how we evaluate talent, how narratives get created and spread, and how sometimes the most obvious answer is right in front of us. The same scouts and analysts who questioned Sanders' character, work ethic, and ability are now watching him outperform veterans and show exactly the traits they said he lacked. The daddy ball narrative that was supposed to be a negative turns out to be one of his biggest advantages. The pressure situations that were supposed to break him are exactly where he's shown the most composure. This is why the NFL is the ultimate meritocracy. You can have all the opinions you want, all the anonymous sources and pre-draft concerns, but at some point, you have to actually play the game. And when Sanders steps between those lines, he's been undeniable. The Browns got a potential franchise quarterback in the 5th round because other teams got caught up in narratives instead of evaluating talent. If Sanders continues on this trajectory, it's going to go down as one of the biggest draft steals in recent memory. So what's the lesson here for all of us watching this unfold? Sometimes the conventional wisdom is wrong. Sometimes the loudest critics don't know what they're talking about. Sometimes the player everyone counts out is exactly the one you should be betting on. Shedeur Sanders walked into Cleveland with everything to prove and nothing to lose. He's taken every criticism, every doubt, every negative report, and used it as fuel. He's not just meeting expectations, he's obliterating them. The kid they said was unprofessional is showing up early and working late. The quarterback they said couldn't handle pressure is throwing touchdown passes under pressure. The player they said was arrogant is being praised for his coachability and team-first attitude. This is just the beginning of the Shedeur Sanders story. And if these OTAs are any indication, we're in for one hell of a ride. Here's what I want to know from you. And I really want your honest take in the comments. Were the pre-draft critics completely wrong about Shedeur Sanders, or is it too early to declare victory? Do you think he'll actually compete for the starting job this season? Or is this just OTA hype that won't translate to real games? And most importantly, if Sanders does become a star, does this completely change how we should evaluate quarterback prospects going forward? Drop your thoughts below because this debate is far from over. And I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this story for years to come. If you want to stay ahead of all the drama, all the shocking developments, and all the moments when the experts get it completely wrong, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this incredible story. The Browns insider was shocked. The critics are being silenced. And Shedeur Sanders? He's just getting started.